Speaking. This is the very first episode of our little podcast, Medically Speaking, and my name is Akshay, your host for today's episode, as well as the president of this project. And here we have Dr. Jaiprakash Mohanraj. Welcome, Dr. Jai. Please, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Akshay. I am Dr. Jai. That's how my students and my fellow colleagues call me. I am an associate professor in the School of Medicine. I teach biochemistry to my students, and I just love my role as a medical educator, as a researcher, and as a doctor. So I'm happy to hear, Akshay.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to our podcast, and you are also our advisor for this podcast. So with that being said, today's episode is on the journey into healthcare. And with that, shall we begin, Doctor?
Yep, certainly.
Thank you. So we have a few questions that we would like to ask you. And the first question is to be, what made you come into medicine?
Interesting question. Well, everyone has their own reasons to come into medicine. Sometimes they come from an emotional aspect. Sometimes they come from a very practical aspect. Sometimes they come from an aspect which involves a lot of peer pressure or peer influence. I wouldn't say pressure. For me, my reason to come into this profession was two things. One is my interest in the field of biology. Okay. That has been something that always interested me. Although during my foundation years, I was equally interested in physics. It was that fascination for that field of biology that kind of pushed me towards looking into this human science-related professions. Okay. And along with that, my strong desire to be a part of, to engage people and community. Because I always enjoyed being among people. So this two put together drove me towards this choice of my profession, because I found that if my time is spent being a doctor, I can put my understanding of human knowledge to actively serve the community. So that's my main motive to choose this profession.
Okay, Doctor. But again, so I think that perfectly leads us into the next question. As we all know that you're here in IMU teaching. So I wanted to ask, what happened and how did you decide to get into teaching from being a doctor? How did you come here?
Wonderful. Actually, that's an excellent question. Well, as I said, everyone has their own origin stories.
Yeah.
Mine, to begin with, was this. This was my motivation. But then what happened is, during my internship, interestingly, when I was going through the rigor of clocking in long hours of 24 hours schedules, and going through that process, somewhere I found I got drawn towards the academic aspect of medical profession rather than the clinical aspect. It was my curiosity that actually made me look towards academia. And then again, added to that, I found out that in academia I can still engage with the society, but I will be engaging with students.
Okay.
To teach and train and inspire them. So that made me look towards my current profession of teaching biochemistry. What also drove me into this academia is research.
Okay.
So because academia provides you an avenue for doing fundamental research, it gave me an opportunity to look beyond the current known realm of medicine. Okay. And to see some areas where I can explore and expand what I've learned already in medicine.
Okay.
Now don't get me wrong. Clinical science also provides you that platform, but clinical science is more towards research from the clinical front. I got drawn into the fundamental research aspect.
Okay. That's very interesting, Doctor. I just have, actually, with you saying that, I have a small question that I want to ask. Do you happen to remember the one specific best memory that you can name as being a lecturer? Something that immediately pops onto your head.
Okay. This happened very recently, I should say.
Okay.
I love taking PBLs.
Okay.
And I enjoy interacting with a small group and inspiring them and see them I see them when they get a moment of enlightenment, when they get the concept. Yeah. I love that.
Okay.
So it so happened that I take feedback at the end of every session, and I ask them to give a feedback of how I facilitate. So very recently, one of my students in the feedback, she was mentioning that she appreciated the way I led the whole PBL. And she said that if at all I continue this profession, this journey in in healthcare, she said that she would aspire to be somebody like me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So at that moment, I felt, this is what we all as teachers want, to inspire our students. and in some way I did touch that individual.
Okay.
So that's one moment that comes up to my head now.
Fair enough, doctor. Thank you. Well, that brings us to our next question. So, what are the biggest misconceptions that students make about studying medicine that you could probably name?
Well, I'll come from two aspects. One is the general known misconception, and another one is from my own personal story. Now, most of the students who come into medicine, they do come with an idea that it's a difficult course. It needs a lot of commitment, and it needs a lot of long hours to be clocked in. Yes, all that is true. They do understand the academic challenges, and most of the time students are kind of geared up for it.
Okay.
But the misconception that many of my students and also my colleagues who I've seen don't they don't get is the amount of academic rigor that is expected in them is equal to the amount of interpersonal skills, ethical judgment, professionalism that they feel is secondary.
Okay.
So that is a major misconception which I am trying to break with my interaction with students. I would want them to understand that the amount of time and understanding that you invest in academia, you should invest in building your professional character.
That's good.
So that's one. The second one is this, that we all have the idea of doctors having a pretty high regard in the society.
Yes.
There is a sense that they have, they're regarded as one of those top professionals. That is true. But just by joining medicine doesn't guarantee you that place.
Yes.
Just by completing medicine doesn't guarantee you that place. You have to work towards it to establish and earn that. So this is another misconception.
Okay.
People who join medicine, they assume that the moment I become a doctor, everybody will start turning back and looking at me with high regard. It doesn't work.
Okay. Do you have any tips on how an individual who is currently studying medicine in university can probably do for them to go into that path of being recognized?
Yes. The best place to start with is to first get your idea of why you are there into this profession very clear at the beginning.
Okay.
You should be very, very clear of what is the purpose of you coming into this particular profession. Once you do that, never let that goal out of your sight. Invest towards building it, right? And when you're identifying the reasons, you have to do medicine for the right reasons, right? Now, internally, when this is a personal talk you have with yourself.
Yes.
You have to be very honest. If my intention of coming into medicine is to make financial gains, then that will be the way forward. You will focus on that aspect of medicine. There's nothing wrong about it. But then you should not aspire for the other aspect of being socially recognized and everything else. But if your reasons are towards service, community well-being, patient care, then hold on to that and work towards that, right? Now, when you work towards that, you will do all that is necessary in terms of learning to enhance those features in you. You'll build on your communication skills. You'll be more empathetic naturally because you're inclining towards it. And then when you graduate, these becomes a part of you. They become part of your character, your nature. It's your second nature. And when that becomes your second nature, you eventually will become a very compassionate doctor.
Okay.
And when you're becoming a compassionate, responsible, ethical, and efficient doctor, obviously your patients, the community, the government will look up to you.
That's fair enough. That is quite true, and I've seen it with myself as well. Doctor, that's great, and I think every answer that you're giving is so perfect to getting on to the next question. And that being said, I would like to ask again. I think we can all agree that studying medicine is not easy. Both on the mind, the physical aspect of it, and everything. And there isn't any shortcuts as though many may think that there are. So with that being said, I'm sure that many of us students struggle to keep a motivation and having a work ethic to doing this. So can I ask that when you were studying medicine, what was your motivation to carry on studying? Because I'm sure that at that time you weren't thinking about the students that you are teaching now or inspiring or anything like that. But what made you stick on to those 4, 6, 5 years of studying medicine when times could have been rough?
True. Actually, it brings me a lot of memories of my days as a student, those challenges I had. let me tell you this honestly, Akshay.
Sure. Doctor.
During my earlier times, I had pretty rough times, like many students do. But I had my own learning going through that phase. I'll come from that point of view to answer your question.
Okay, sure, please.
So basically, again, as I said in my earlier response, the one factor that kept me going even through those rough times was the reason for which I joined medicine.
Okay.
I never let that go out of focus. I never let that shift my focus. It so happens that I see from my students now that when they want to join in, I do take student interviews and all, right?
Okay.
So when we ask them, why do you choose this profession? The answer is usually, I want to, engage community. I want to do well-being. I want to, take care of patients and everything. All are fantastic. But as they move into the academic year, the pressure hits on them.
Yes.
And their motive is not to become a good doctor. Their motive is to pass their exams.
Rather to finish
their course and to finish their career. So what they are doing is they are ready to compromise their competencies in order to just complete the course.
Okay.
And there they lose the focus of why they join medicine.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say here is that my inspiration actually came to go through those hurdles. Probably in our discussion earlier, in the corridor discussion that you and me had, I always told you that focus on the main agenda of you becoming a good doctor.
Yes.
So if your agenda is to focus on becoming a good doctor, an efficient doctor, you failing will not be a matter of it will not be something that you will it will affect you emotionally. You will feel bad that you failed, but it is another opportunity to learn as well.
That is true. And as you know, I've been in certain situations that made me continuously come by as well.
Correct. So again, as I said, these are opportunities for you to reflect and say that, yes, I didn't do well, and that's why I didn't perform well, and that's why my results are not well. So the purpose of this is that I should do better next time.
Yes.
So I fixed the problem. So we all have spoken about fixing the process.
Yeah.
Right, and not worrying about the results. So that is something which motivated me to go through that. Now, another thing is that apart from that focus, the focus of their primary goal being the focal point, the second thing that helped me is to nurture myself.
Okay.
What I mean by nurturing myself is, you should understand that, as you said rightly, this is not an easy course, right? So the first thing is you have to invest in your well-being.
Sure, doctor.
You have to invest in your physical and mental well-being. That's absolutely essential, because when you take care of your emotional, your physical, and your academic needs, you will find ways to overcome hurdles.
Yes, that's very true.
So, and you should have good support system. You should have people you can talk to. You should have people who can communicate, or you should have good coping strategies. Some people choose spiritualism. Some people choose sports. So you should have a good coping strategy.
Okay. May I ask what was yours, doctor, during that time?
I had a good group of friends who I could open up, share my views, discuss my concerns, and sometimes even emotionally connect with them. They were the ones who pulled me out during those tough phases.
Okay.
It's not that they gave me magic solutions.
Yeah.
It's just that you want
just
to
being
there. You want somebody to hear you out.
Yeah.
So if you find that's great. Then I knew a few of my friends always had their families who supported them in their emotional crisis, and then there was another group of my friends again. They leaned towards spirituality, because sometimes spirituality can be a very good space to unwind yourself, rethink yourself, recalibrate yourself.
Fair enough.
So those are the aspects.
Okay.
Right. So these are just some of the ways I overcome those tough times.
Okay. All right, doctor. Thank you for that. And I think that perfectly aligns us to the final question that I have for you. And that would be that if you could go back in time and look at yourself when you were in maybe my time, when I'm in second year medical school, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, this is always one of those questions where you can reflect upon yourself, and if possible, kind of reflect to say, okay, all these things I could have not done. But let me tell you something. Having gone through whatever I've gone is what made me.
That's true.
And that's where I am here, and that's why I'm talking to you here, being a part of this whole conversation and being a part of this beautiful institute. So trust me, wherever you are in your journey, you will reach a place where one day you will also have an opportunity to be interviewed. You will also have a high point in your life.
Thank you.
So please all my dear students, please remember this, that no matter which place you are in, continue the journey with a lot of honesty, dedication, determination, and joy. You will find success. Okay. Now, having said that, if I had to speak to my own younger self, the first thing I would say is don't focus on the output.
Okay. So the same advice you gave me.
On the process, exactly.
Okay.
I made this mistake so many times. Why is that so important? Is because the moment you focus on your output, fear and apprehension is eventual.
Yes.
And when you have fear and apprehension and anxiety come in place because the pressure to perform, the pressure to get results, your focus on the process is lost.
Yes, that's
and
true.
When you focus on process is lost, then you're not giving your 100% on the process. So that's counterproductive to your output. So I would tell myself, just keep working on the process. If you work on the process, improve your process, your results is eventually going to be good.
I'm sure many people will be very happy to hear that.
I would want all my students to just do that. Just put their head down, focus on the process, enjoy the journey. The results will come by. That's one thing.
Okay.
The second thing is, for any learner, it's not just medical profession.
Okay.
For any learner, there are two things that they should never compromise.
Okay.
One is curiosity,
and
the other is compassion.
Okay.
Now, curiosity drives learning.
Yes, it does.
Right? Now, most of us, in the urgency or in the need to pass, in the need to get the output, we forget to be curious.
Yes.
And that's where pressure builds on us.
Yes.
Because learning is no longer a natural consequence, it's more a forced consequence.
Mm-hmm.
If curiosity is kept alive, we are all natural learners.
Okay.
Right? Do you remember your days when as a kid, you would walk into a garden and you probably would see a butterfly?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're curious, what is this butterfly doing? How does it get this color? Or you look up a tree and you look up this, you see, what's this? How is this happening? You'll simply keep wondering at things, right?
Yes, that's true.
That is the learning that happens. I want my students to not let go of these two very important characters or personalities in them, curiosity and compassion. Never let go. And as third thing, I would say to myself, no matter where you are, nurture yourself. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you, Doctor. Sure.
I would want all my students to first invest in their well-being so that they can invest in their patients' well-being.
Thank you, Doctor. Will do. All right. I think that was wonderful, Dr. Jay, and I'm very glad to have you onto our first episode of Medically Speaking, and it's been a pleasure for both working with you and not only having you in this first episode, but having you as an advisor for us and also advisor for me personally. And with that coming to the end, is there anything else that you would like to say, Doctor?
Well, I would first of all like to thank you, Akshay, for
very much,
inviting me to be the one of your inviting me for this particular podcast. Basically, my journey is always to connect with my students, to inspire them and motivate them. So this platform actually gives me another space to do it, and I'm glad that I could make my voice be heard through your podcast.
Thank you very much, Doctor. It was a pleasure.
I wish you all the very best, your team all the very best.
Thank you.
Because this is an important form of communication, what you're doing. I know that you have a good line of doctors and professionals from healthcare lined up to inspire your fellow colleagues, inspire the future generation, inspire all the learners. So I wish you well, and this is a fantastic space. I want you to take it forward to the best possible extent.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And with that coming to the end, thank you very much for listening. That is Medically Speaking signing off, and Akshay Soundarajan signing off from the first episode. Have a good day.